made about 15 minutes from here. But even people in Colorado kind of make fun of it. So it's but you know, the great Smokey and the Bandit movie was about that. So
we are now live.
Historical, yeah. So it has historical significance in that way.
To everyone who's finally able to join us, that was a little conversation about Coors beer with our Australian friends. Sorry for the delay here. We had some technical difficulties with Google Hangout, so hopefully you're able to get in and join us now. So today is our first day of an author platform introductory series that we're doing with our authors, and we're going to let our authors share some of their favorite marketing tips and tools and things that they've learned with you. And the reason we want to do this series is something that authors of all levels struggle with is the very idea of the author platform or marketing, and it really turns a lot of people off. So we want to help authors understand this a little bit better to help them become more successful. So the way that we're going to start real quick is basically just to kind of add the definition of the author platform. It's best to look at it as an author as your brand. So your author platform is how you choose to represent yourself as a whole, and then there are a lot of little pieces that go into it. The most important thing to keep in mind as we're having these conversations and why we're doing it as a roundtable is because no platform is going to be the same for every person, and it's most important that you find what you enjoy the most and try different things out and find the techniques that really help you succeed. So all of our authors have a different approach, they have a different style, and they consider themselves a different type of author. And they all use the same tools in different ways and platforms in different ways. So we're really going to pick their brain and kind of dive into it. So how I want to open this with our author panel, we've got David OSullivan, we've got Dora and You Pray, we've got Mike Hanson, and we've got Scott Thompson joining us today, is I want to go down and I want each one of our authors to tell us what they feel an author platform is. So in 2 or 3 sentences, I want to hear from the authors what your definition of an author platform is.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. I think you summed it up pretty well in the beginning about, you know, kind of branding yourself. The way I use it is, yeah, I'm going to try to sell you my book, but I need to sell you myself as well. Because if you buy me, then you're probably going to buy my book. So,
Mike, how much do you cost?
How much do I cost? Right now it's probably pretty low, so I'll take off.
Aww.
No, it's fine. So yeah, just the way you go about doing that, that's kind of how you're going to get to your platform, and then I think the rest of these 3 guys will probably sum it up a little bit better, but that's a little opening statement.
I would see an author platform as being a place where you're visible, but you're making connections with readers. I see it as an opportunity for the reader to get to know you and what you have to offer, to be there for them when they want to spend some time with you, in a sense, that you're not somebody who's locked away. You're able to make connections with people, and they can see what you're doing, and be able to feel that, like Jerome David J.D. Salinger said, when in Catcher in the Rye, when you're reading a book, it feels like if you know it's a good book if you feel, I'm just paraphrasing, if you can pick up the phone and feel like you could talk to the author and he'd be or she'd be your best friend. I like to get the feeling that you're available for the readers and people who might be readers, potential readers, to see what you're all about and make that connection with you.
Great. Dory or Scott?
I think that an author platform is your public face to what you want your writing to represent. I think that it's I know this is probably sacrilegious to say about an artist or a writer, but it's kind of a censored, filtered thing that you put out there about yourself and your writing to the world, what you're willing to show, kind of probably like you're writing yourself. It is a good way to be able to interact with people on your own terms, and then keep it separate from your personal life as well. And so, and because of the I know this is probably longer than 2 or 3 sentences, but I apologize. Because there's so many different platforms that we can use, the platforms can change form depending on which one and the kinds of people that you interact with.
Awesome. And wrap it up with Scott.
Yeah, it's a series of tools where you kind of get a chance to share yourself with readers and potential readers. Kind of like Mike was saying, it's a place to begin to sell yourself and your work, but also, like Dory was saying, to kind of control what you put out there, and you have to be careful. You're selling the story of the writer, but you can easily cross the line on your author platform and make people begin to hate you as soon as you cross over into that political area or become, cross into a religious area or anything like that. You can really make a big mistake. So it's an area to show a part of you as a writer and the part that the reader wants to see. They don't want to see everything, but they do want to see something.
That's such an interesting point. So if you are using your author platform to back a politician or to back a certain belief, you can do yourself a lot of damage. That's quite an interesting point. Is that what you're saying? That if say I was
well, I think in that case, if you were let's say you're a conservative writer or a liberal writer, then obviously you would talk about that because that's what people want to see there. When they're looking at my books, they're looking at books about life, books about family, books about love. So if I start dropping stuff about political left or right ideas too much, that's really going to turn people off because that's not what they want to hear. If you turn on CNN and watch political news, well, that's what you expect to see. That's okay. But if you're watching, a comedy, the last thing you want to do is see something about, the election in the U.S. That's not what you're interested in at that time. You're probably trying to forget about those things. So you have to be careful because you are part of your stories. So you have to be careful what lines you cross. But if you are a political writer or you are a religious writer, I think those are okay to cross. Sometimes I go a little bit into the religious area without going too far, I hope. Because my books kind of touch on that. I'm a Southerner, and the books are Southern fiction, and religion is part of that world, so you do touch on it some, without crossing too far of a line. But I think it depends on what you're writing. I know you're.
Such a good point that you make, because if you're forcing something on somebody, the first thing they want to do is run away. If you're trying to push something on somebody, the first thing they want to do is keep away from you. That's a really good point, I think.
It depends on your brand, I think. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say it depends on what you're trying to project, like Scott was saying, with your writing. If you're representing a certain kind of genre or you want certain things put out there about yourself, the only people that seem to be able to get away with saying exactly what they want at all times are the highly, highly, highly successful people like Stephen King, or somebody like that can say whatever they want and they suffer no repercussions for it whatsoever from their fan base. And so everybody else, though, you have to be careful that you, at least if you don't want to alienate people, if you don't mind alienating people, then say whatever you want.
Sorry, David. I almost put a link into the chat channels. For those who aren't part of our author family, we utilize Slack as communication channels. But I almost put a link in the channel. It's about Stephen King. So it's really interesting that you said that, because it talked about how his Twitter account is one of the top Twitter accounts for any author because of the way he utilizes it to interact with fans. So David, we'll go to your thought real quick, and then I'm going to ask the next question.
So has Stephen King taken a position on the upcoming election, and what does he do that Twitter? What does he do with his Twitter that's so effective? Is he communicating personally with people, or what's he doing?
Yeah, he's making real puns, and he's communicating in real life time with his fans, and it's something, John Green was on the list as well, but they just said that Stephen King had this relatable humor, and he connected with his fans in such a way that he connected with a strong variety through just being relatable. And so I think that that goes back to, if we look at what every single one of you said with the first question, every single one of you mentioned using your author platform for relationship building. Yay! That made me happy. And then you also said it's a place for you to share yourself before you sell yourself. And so that came up really, really quickly, and I think that's where a lot of authors really lose the focus on their platform, because they feel like their platform is just where they're going sell, sell, sell. But it's not. It's about building yourself up within your comfort zones to present a true face to your audience. So as we said earlier, everyone will have a different set of tools. I like this panel because we've got 2 authors who are previously published, and then 2 new authors. So Scott published before he came to us, and he's an award-winning author. We're getting ready to put out David's second book now. Mike self-published a book of poetry, but we published his first actual novel, and then we were blessed beyond belief to get Dory's first novel, Scout's Honor. So we've got a good, strong representation of where people are in building their platform and trying new things. So you guys know that I love my podcasts. So I listen to this one podcast all the time called The Author Hangout. And they mentioned that there's 5 types of authors. And I can't remember all of them, but basically it came down to building your platform, and before you start you have to decide what kind of author you want to be. So you have to decide if you want to do no promotion and only write books, which means you have to put out book after book after book. You're the type of author who wants to put out a book and get your writing out on as many platforms as possible. You're the type of writer who wants to use social media. You're the type of writer who wants to use public events, or you're the type of writer who does it as a hobby. So my next question for you guys is, how important do you feel it is to identify yourself as an author before you start working on your platform? Do you feel that's vital to understanding how to begin and figure out what works for you, or do you think someone should just dive into it and then figure out who they are as they're working along?
I think it's actually pretty important to find out who you are. Actually, just in general life skills, I think you need to know who you are. So for me, you know, I really like Facebook, I really like Twitter, and I really like Instagram. That's not going to work for everybody, though. Some people might be really strong in the 140 characters and nail it. We have, in our author family, we got Ralph, and that dude nails Twitter. He knows himself. He can throw out a quick little joke in 140 characters, whereas I need a little bit more room, so I'm going to go over to Facebook. I'm going to write a whole bunch. That's just the way. That's my style. So I think it's really important to kind of know who you are, and then once you know that, just kind of channel yourself through that and put your best effort where it needs to be, instead of stringing yourself out and giving minimal effort everywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think it's more of an Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say that's a good point about not spreading yourself too thin with social media. You know, you really do have to pick the 1 or 2, 3 at the most things you can handle. I heard someone explain social media once that if you're at a party and there's 15 little groups and you try to spend 5 minutes at each of those 15 little groups, no one is going to remember you the next day. But if you spend most of that party in 1 or 2 of those little groups, people will remember you the next day. Same thing with social media. You just can't possibly cover everything. Yeah, so find your strengths.
Sorry. The party analogy got me excited because I use the party to describe social media, and I don't mean to jump in ahead of you, Dory. I'm really sorry. But I describe Twitter as the cocktail party, So where you're going around meeting people quickly, and they may remember you, they may not, but it's a quick first impression. Kind of like if you're driving down a highway and you see a billboard, you see the billboard and it goes away. You remember it or you don't. So to me, that's Twitter. Facebook is the dinner party where you invite people in for a little bit more. Instagram is where you start breaking out the family albums and giving them a more intense look at your life. So you've really, built that personal connection. And then your blog and your website is where you just open the doors to your home and you just have like a big, potluck dinner with people saying, this is me. So I really like comparing that with the analogy that you just used, Scott. So I'm really sorry to interrupt you, Scott, and I'm sorry to jump ahead of you, Dory. But
oh, you're fine. I was just going to say that it's kind of I think that it's also an evolutionary process when you're first starting out. Like, you don't really know. Like, all I ever had before was I had a Facebook personal account and an Instagram to stalk my children. And so that was pretty much the purpose of my Instagram. But I've always loved photography. So over the time, it used to be a personal thing, and then it evolved into an author thing, and then now, I'm trying to find out what works where, because I do like Instagram, and I hope I don't get sued for saying this, but I hate Twitter, but I see its purpose. I don't have the Ralph 140-word zinger on the top of my tongue, and so I have to think about it, and I have to plan, and I have to do the Hootsuite and all that. But trying to get on there and interacting with people once in a while as well is also just as important. So I think it's just always evolutionary. You have to find out where your strongest assets are with your personality and what you're trying to present, and then focus on building relationships in those social media, and then hope that those can carry on to the others that you might not be as strong in.
If you're not having fun with what you're doing either, you're going to give it up. I think you've really got to enjoy what you're doing. If you're forcing yourself, I've got to go and do this now, and I've got to go do this now, that becomes really bitter. I think that if you are enjoying what you're putting out there, it's something that, because at the moment I'm on a real poetry kick, and I'm really loving it, and it's making, I get time every day now, and it doesn't feel like work. It feels like, by me adding new poetry to my web page, it feels like I'm kicking a number of goals at once. I'm having fun, I'm practicing my writing, and I'm putting information out there for people. So I think you need to fall in love with something and use that as a motivator.
Yes. When it comes to jumping in on your social media, like for right now, example, our Instagram, like Dory, I love photography and sharing images, but our Instagram right now is at a standstill because we're kind of rebranding it, because there was just like this helter-skelter of a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And so we're redoing that because it didn't show the love that we had behind the Instagram or the presentation. So I think this also goes along with what each one of you said, is that you have to be able to show your personality. And another thing I read, or not read, but that I've heard repeatedly, is to pick one platform and love that platform until you master it, and then start moving into others, because those will organically grow. And I think a lot of authors stretch themselves way too thin at the beginning. Yeah. So my next question and piece of advice for authors that are going to be tuning in and are just building their author platform, what was your biggest challenge to even approaching either understanding your platform, starting your platform, or dedicating yourself to your platform? Dory?
It was overwhelming to me. I mean, that was the biggest thing. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, and so we're kind of in between with technology. I think some of us are heavy technology people, and some of us are still trying to figure some of it out. And I think it's just making the decision that it's like exercise. David was mentioning how you have to love what you're doing, but you also have to do things that you hate. And because they're good for you, like running. Like, I run and I hate it. I hate every step that I take, but I know if I don't do it, the calories will catch up. And so it's the same thing with your social media platform when you're an author. You have to pay attention to it. You have to do the platforms that you may not like as much, but you have to You have to make it a form of discipline each and every day. And I think just getting a handle on it and being able to get some kind of organization to it, and the tools that Dion provided for us was helpful to me in helping get that organized. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah, I don't know if technology's been difficult for me, because I kind of have been doing technology for a while and probably was working in social media and the internet world before Facebook even existed. So in that way, it's a little bit easier for me. I think on my side, it's just finding the time, to be consistent with it. I try to keep the social media a little more casual instead of formal, which may not always be the best marketing strategy, but I think it keeps it a little bit more human. Just like sometimes I'm too busy to come over and eat dinner, and sometimes I might be at your house 4 nights, in a row. So it's kind of the way I am with social media as well. It's life is up and down, and yeah, it's probably finding the time. I'm not as consistent with it maybe as I should be.
Yeah, that was actually going to be almost my exact point. Was the most difficult thing, getting started when you have this book is maybe you don't realize at the time, but you're essentially opening a business. So when you're going about that, you need to find time to, spread the message that you want to spread, be consistent with your branding. And you may be active, on your own personal time on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you like to hang out. But when you sit down and now you have this book that's in your portfolio, just maybe just realigning your time to get the best message out there is probably one of the most difficult things, I think.
My biggest challenge has probably been a number of the feeling that I have to force myself to put a message out there, and probably because I have issues with self-promotion. I'm probably not the best self-promoter. I don't like talking to people and saying, I'm really good. Have a look at this. And I know you don't have to do that. There are other ways about it. But I think I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a insecurity issue. But I'd like people to. I don't have that feeling that I can. If I was at this Twitter party, I would have a lot of trouble introducing myself to strangers, I think. And I think it's very similar to social media. So I just got to get over that, I think. And I do that by doing something that I find enjoyable. I think if I can enjoy it, then I'll have more confidence in telling people I don't know about it. So that's the funny personal thing about me, I suppose.
You're like our resident Hemingway. But that's good, because this shows the different personalities again, and why it's so important to, even if you're listening to this show or listening to another podcast or reading an article, to figure out what works for you. And somebody can tell you, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. And maybe you do those steps, but coordinate them in a way that works best for you. Or maybe you don't do that at all and you do what works for you. It's a lot of trial and error. I really want to get Peter Mann on one of these, because he is 2.5 years post-launch of his debut novel, and he recently started a booktube channel. But it took him 2.5 years to find his sweet spot, and now it's really working for him because it's natural, and his audience feels like it's natural, and they don't feel like it's challenging them, and they just find out about his book secondly. So that really works for him, but then it doesn't always work for other people. Like, I tried to make a booktube video because Peter talked me into it, and it was a disaster, so I took it down after an hour. I was kind of like, yeah, this isn't for me. So I took that down. But I love what Mike said, that approaching your author platform to spread the message you want to spread. And that, again, goes back to relationships. So I had a really good question, and that ship has sailed. So does anyone want to interject something while I try to remember? I'm writing notes and stuff because you guys are saying such amazing things, and that question just went. So does anyone want to interject something while I try to figure that out?
Well, I think the trick with social media is really to keep it human. Sometimes we forget that, and we start, putting. I mean, we're almost like robots online, but just really just show who you are. We talked about early on how you show only parts of yourself. And that's the same thing in all kinds of worlds. If you go to church, you're only going to show certain things. You're not going to scream at your kids. If when you're at home, you may scream at your kids. When you're at work, you show a different person. When you're an author person, you also show a different. So you show different sides. So it's still honest. It's still who you are. You're still having honest relationships, just different parts of who you are. So the trick is really to keep it human, and that's a little bit difficult to do, especially maybe for Generation X and older. I think the millennials are really good at this because they're just so connected online. I mean, they grew up in it. For Generation X, we're learning it, and older than that, baby boomers, is probably very difficult. But it's just trying to stay human is a real trick, and I think if you can do that, you can get somewhere. And that's one thing that some people have been very successful. Peter's doing a great job with his book videos. I love those, and they made me want to go out and read 10 books a week, which I can't do. But they're successful. So finding what you do well, and then being human, being who you are, at least showing a part of who you are.
Yeah, my book budget kind of went through the window, especially after his "These are my mother's favorite books" video. I immediately was like, oh, I'm going to buy this. And then my husband kept answering the door going, what are all these deliveries you have to do? So thanks, Peter. Thanks a lot. But that shows the value in, like what you all are saying, is just being yourself and not putting too much pressure on trying to be perfect for the reader, but just trying to be authentic to your true self. So as we're approaching the end of this time now, I want to run down real quick, and I want you all to tell us what your favorite tool for working on your platform is, whether it's social media, whether it's a development tool, whether it's a blogging platform or a place you go to get resources. What's one secret that you'll share with us?
Okay. I can go ahead. One thing I've been obsessed with lately, and if any of you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll know it, is Design Feed. That website's amazing. It saves so much time. If you like Canva, you'll like Design Feed even better if you're just doing quotes. Because on my Instagram, go on there, I find a quote that I really like. I have spreadsheets full of them. Go on there, pop in the quote. 5 minutes later, I have a beautiful picture to share with all you guys. So that's probably the one I'm super obsessed with now.
I love my webpage, davidgeosullivan.com. I just love going there and putting things on and interacting with people when they come along to read my things. I feel like it's a really good base, for me to share my writing.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any secret tools, or I like WordPress because it's an easy blogging tool to use and you can learn it. It has a lot of tools. I do well on Twitter, but I think the place to really be the most human, at least for me, is Facebook. I think that's why Facebook has been hugely successful, and I think it can still be very successful on the author side. It's something I'm really not using it as often as I should, or as well as I should, but I think Facebook is a great tool if you could get your readers there and start to do some real interactions, because there's the human element there is, to me, the most powerful so far out of all social media tools.
I've just been kind of on an Instagram kick lately. I think I don't have any special tool except Google and pictures that I take, and I try to look at a photo. In my past, I used to do a lot of photography, and so I take a photo that I have on my phone and I upload it, and I try to think to myself, what am I trying to say with this photo? And then I Google what I'm trying to think, and up comes a great quote from some famous novel, and it's just a way to connect with people who are into those sorts of things on Instagram, other writers, readers, travel photographers, and people from all over the place. So that's kind of what the kick that I'm on right now.
Great. Mine was going to be Canva, but Mike shot that down with Design Feed. So
I didn't shoot it down. I didn't shoot it down.
No, yeah, like Canva's really good for different options. But lately I've been noticing it's been a little sticky and freezing. But my all-time favorite right now, because I was using Hootsuite, and then we were having a lot of problems with the spreadsheets, and I downloaded a plugin to help bulk scheduling that just destroyed our Hootsuite. And even though we canceled our Hootsuite account, we are still getting charged for the plugin like 2 years later. So I'm kind of fed up with Hootsuite. But we moved, sorry Hootsuite, you might be good for other people, just we weren't that cool. My favorite is Sendable, and I like Sendable because you can schedule all your platforms, you can set automatic replies, and it connects directly into Canva, so you can design your social media images right in your scheduling platform, and then it puts them into a media library, and you can also store tweets or social postings, or you can schedule them. So I can upload my spreadsheet, and then I can tell Sendable to send this tweet every 4 days at this time, or this tweet every single day, or this tweet once a month or once a quarter. So we can do an entire year's worth of tweets in like a week. Of course, you don't want it to go stagnant, but it's a really good option for those who are really pressed on time. So that's my favorite right now. So let's go with the humble brags here. And we'll go down the line and let everybody say how to get a hold of them, so you can continue the conversation, ask them questions about their marketing, ask them any questions that you might have. And as we said earlier, this is part 1 of a 4-part series. So next week, our author panel, we tell our authors to try to do 7 things every day to market your book. And next week, we're going to have our authors share with you 3 things that they love to do to market their book that are either free or low cost, and just take time and effort, not a lot of money. So that comes next week, but let's let our authors tell you how to get a hold of them. We'll start with Scott since his face just popped up.
All right, well, I'm looking at the pages online because they're a little bit difficult to remember, but Facebook is probably a good place to get in touch with me. Like I said, I like to interact with people. You can get on there, you can ask me questions, we can talk. Not only do you get to know me, but I get to know you, which is always part of what makes life interesting. So you can find my author page on Facebook at facebook.com, Scott Thompson Author. You can also go to my website at authorscottthompson.com. Either of those is a good place.
Great. Here, Mike.
Okay. Mike Hanson, author of When Life Hands You a Lemon, available today. Go buy it.
Sound a little more excited. The book is really good.
Oh, thanks.
It's out today. You can buy it. Way to close out the author platform call, Mike.
Yep, that's what I'm good for. Anyway, you can find it at www.fattyhanson.com, FATTYHANTN. Twitter is Fatty Hanson. Instagram is Fatty Hanson. Facebook, I have an author Facebook page, but I can't remember but you can find me on there. So yeah, and I am excited. Just let you guys know.
Awesome. Dory?
I am Dora and You Pray, and I am on Facebook under Dora and You Pray. That's my author page. I'm the author of Scouts Honor. Scouts Honor even has its own Facebook page. And then I'm on Twitter as Dora and You Pray, and Instagram. You can search Dora and You Pray, and my Instagram handle will come up. I'm on Pinterest too, but I'm kind of not like typical women with that. I have 10 followers, so don't bother there. But I hope to hear from you.
My name's David OSullivan, and I have a novel out already called The Bomber, and my next novel is coming out next month on the 20th, and it's called Anvil Soul. If you want to talk to me or see me, davidgosullivan.com is where I'm living at the moment, and I'm there every day. So if you'd like to drop by and see what I'm doing, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we definitely encourage you to check all the authors out because they all have a totally different style of branding, a different style of how they present themselves on their website. Their websites are all completely different for who they are. So if you're struggling with figuring out how to introduce yourself, take a look at what they do, and maybe that will help you kind of find your balance as you start to get into this. As we close out, I am going to recommend a resource material for authors. It's a great book called Building Your Author Platform by Chuck Sambuchino. It's Sambuchino. It's by far the best book I've ever read about introducing your author business, getting a handle on it, and understanding it really well. So I highly recommend picking that up. You can get it on Amazon. It's like $7.99, so check that out. And then we hope that you join us next week for some free tips. In the meantime, feel free to keep the conversation going on FrenchPressBookworks.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter at FPBookworks. And we would love to talk to you, have any of our authors answer any questions, or take your questions into one of our next episodes over the next 4 weeks. So we hope you all enjoyed this and found this useful, and we will see you next time. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I don't know how to turn it on.